Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Charles. My name's Will. I've been at Passle for the last 7 years. You want the clicker?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Margie's in charge already of the clicker. We're really excited to have Margie on today, and we're going to be talking about, as Charles says, the big A&O Shearman merger, and I'm guessing that's why quite a few of you are in the room, because you're either going through one or have been going through one or might be going through one. It's quite a big topic at the moment. But we're going to really delve down into the crux of, you've got to launch a website straight away. You have to have a digital presence that's ready to go to the market, internally and externally, if you want to call internal partners your clients as well. Luckily, they're in safe hands with Margie. She's had over 2 decades, may I say that, of experience at AmLaw 100 firms, and a great wealth of insight and knowledge in that space, which is just as well, because having to bring those 2 mega brands together, am I allowed to use the word legacy, or you can talk about your swear jar about legacy?
Yeah, I'll fill you in on that. I think you already owe me about $50.
Yeah, not allowed to use the word legacy. But we're going to delve into quite a few little bits here in terms of takeaways. We're going to talk about practical lessons that if anyone is going through this, where do you start? Where do you look at the brand? Where do you look at the website? How do you bring 2 teams together? There's a whole multitude of things you need to think about that Margie's already done and her team have done. Enough of an intro, but please put your hands together and welcome Margie onto stage.
Thank you. It's fabulous to be here, and I can't believe I'm sitting here a year later. We made it, and we've learned a lot, and really would love to share some of those learnings, and I can get a little bit into the weeds on what we've learned and taken away from it, because it really was quite a project. I would closest comparison I would say was to try to figure everything out around COVID, and I'll get into that a little bit into the discussion. But I'm up here, but it really was a global team of over hundreds of people that went into getting our brand, our rebrand, and launching the website and developing all the content and more. And we did a reflection on the first year as a combined firm on the, we're not really using the word anniversary, but it was the 1-year mark of the combination. And on a day-to-day basis, it kind of feels like you're pushing a major boulder up a hill and not really getting there, or maybe even rolling back a little bit. But to step back and look at all of the different things that we've done collectively, and how across the different regions we've been able to evolve and modify for fit-for-purpose go-to-market strategies has been really exciting and rewarding, and I'm really proud of what we've built as a team, and also I should start out by saying when we merged on May 1, we had just really gotten to know our 2 teams that I brought together into one over the last month, because with all of the antitrust barriers in place, we really were not able to go into much detail. We were started to pitch together, but anything relating to fees had to go separately. So it really, just thinking back on it all now, some of it's all a blur in a good way, but there really was tremendous work done collectively across the team. And I have to say, where we were a year ago and what we launched a year ago has already evolved quite a bit and continues to. Actually, it is at this very moment in terms of our Chambers launch today. So, without further ado, I would say let's get started.
I was going to set the scene actually with regards to the merger, because I think everyone knows very well what happened, but you've got your own little story about when you took the role. We'll talk about that. But yeah, just to set the scene, it was May the 1st, 2024. This big merger happened, 4,000 lawyers combined, 47 offices coming together, and then the outcome is $3.5 billion worth of sort of billings, essentially, revenue that took place. So it was probably one of the biggest in history, I would say. Obviously, there's lots, and there might be people in the room that are taking place at the moment. Michelle Fountain-Lee, probably from Herbert Smith's and Kramer. That was the most recent one on Monday. I was at dinner with Emily last night, actually, in terms of Lewis Rocker and Womble Bond as well, and that's a combination. I don't know if Ian Ribbald's here from Ballard Spa, but obviously theirs is a combination as well. We're not going to go into the nuances of the difference between the naming conventions, but it is obviously something to think about. Key takeaways we've got today, just so that everyone, the click is working or not. No.
I'm pressing the green button.
There we go. So these are some of the key takeaways that we want you to get from today's session, but how to manage complexity and drive alignment across a large global organization, mainly, as we said, in terms of the website. Why a content-driven approach is really useful to get that sort of building the brand and the client engagement out there. Also, how to ensure your website is built for immediate impact, but also in the long term as well. You don't want to keep, you talked about it as an evolving project. You don't want to keep going back and doing your website again. And of course, we'll come on to it. I think you're going to give your contact details at the end if anyone wants a speed dial. But it's how to survive, really, some of this. It's not an easy process, and I think we're not going to do warts and all, but you are going to delve into how tricky it has been. So without further ado, I think you're going to show. Actually, I was going to do a real show of hands. Is anyone going through a merger at the moment? Anyone been through a merger or can see it on the horizon? Anyone in the crowd? So there's not as many as I expected. Okay. We're just going to play a little video, which is the first sort of brand video that you guys did when it went live. Bring back some memories for you. Here we go. Can you talk us through that a bit in terms of?
Yeah, well, I mean, this really launched what was our combined brand. And, it's a brand that is very different from both and I'm going to say legacy firms, in that A&O had a very traditional sort of Magic Circle, banker type brand, crimson red. I can't remember the exact number, but we have our own specific red, or had, I should say. And then the Shearman brand was traditional, followed by a rebrand shortly before the merger, actually, where we'll get to a slide later on, but basically they gave a modern spin, but kept kind of their traditional brand as well. So the biggest change for everyone was that we went to black and white photography. And I have to say, when we landed on this, I was sort of like, really? And I thought, okay, from a concept perspective and image, I thought, okay, world is not black and white. What are we doing here? But then kind of diving in with our consultants who we used and really understanding what we were trying to do, we were bringing unique imagery that really, it's like the made-you look imagery, which we've got a whole library within Brandbox that we use that have some really kind of basic, but with a layer of unique in it that we can choose for, that have been approved as part of our brand strategy. And there's definitely, you come across photos and you're like, how did this get in here? I think there's a man in a desert in a suit wrapped in cellophane, and you're sort of like, I think we were joking around at one point during the integration being like, this is how we feel right now. But it was, the imagery coming together along with landing on fonts that are really unique fonts for the brand, were the biggest changes that we integrated throughout. Obviously, a lot of white space used. And then the big one that we really enjoy is the use of the ampersand, and how our team really took to splicing and dicing the ampersand and using that in various ways, which you'll see in some of the slides going forward. But we're really excited about it. We've received incredible feedback on it. We got an award from the Drum, the website team, along with our consultants for the launch of the website. So it made impact.
And how, from your perspective, obviously you were at Ropes and Gray for 18 years.
Yes, I grew up there.
And we were talking about this before, but you wanted them to merge at the time, right? So you actually wanted a sort of merger going on.
I did, and I still have my firms that I think would be perfect, but I will keep those to myself.
But you didn't realize, if you tell the little story about, so you then joined A&O.
Yeah, I joined A&O in, let's see, I resigned from Ropes in April of 2023. I took a week off in between, and I flew down to South Carolina to see my parents who had just moved down there. And I hit the tarmac in Savannah and turned my phone on, and it exploded with text messages from folks at Ropes going, you want to come back. Do you still have a job? And I'm like, do I still have a job? The merger was announced. The merger was announced on a Sunday. It was announced on the Sunday because it was a very tight circle of individuals who were involved, and we were aware of a leak. So, or I should say they at the time. So I joined A&O a week later, and my job had changed dramatically in that. And so in addition to having joined with an incredibly under-resourced US team, the A&O side had doubled its partnership in an 18-month period, and the team had not been grown to scale yet. So I entered into an exhausted team, and lo and behold, merging a year later, we also had a similar situation, and we were still under-resourced. So a lot of this last year, from America's perspective, as we have been integrating, we've also been growing the team and continue to grow it.
And how your experience at Ropes, did that stand you in good stead with regards to what was to come that you didn't, that you found out?
Yeah, despite having not experienced a merger in the past, and having grown up at Ropes to the point of seeing, the evolution of the Ropes brand from going from, the best firm in Boston to, really a truly global firm. When I was considering a move, I wanted to go to a firm that really seemed to be forward-thinking and uses technology, et cetera. And I have to say, I was blown away by A&O's forward-thinking, particularly around AI, and its sophistication in terms of truly being a global organization, where resources that I dreamt of having at my prior firm, there were significant teams in place, and that's everything from our content team to our design team, and having a shared service center in Belfast, where we've got a significant number of our marketing team members that contribute to all of our content, work on pitches, et cetera. So having that, moving to that sophistication, having kind of learned the ins and outs through having to build a lot on our own when I was at Ropes, set me up to really think through in this new, on the new journey, how we could be nimble and really evolve the brand.
And then I suppose the next question is, the big thing happens, and then how do you align, what's essentially your shop window, the digital presence, with core and key objectives of the new firm? How did you align that as a team?
Sure. I mean, and the interesting thing was, we had our objectives setting out as a combined firm, but when we merged, we had completely reorged the entire practice structure because neither practice structure was identical, shocker. But we went to having several verticals, department verticals, and 23 different practice areas. What was interesting about that, it wasn't finalized until about a month before the merge. So we were really forced to think about how we build this website to speak to what our clients want, right? And so the value of client feedback when it came to how we're going to present this website was really important. And talking to clients about what they look for, what's helpful, what is missing, what have they seen that's worked great, that was a huge part of kind of building in and thinking through how we were going to display A&O Shearman. The other piece of it, too, was getting our story right. And through the year lead up, and I'll pause there for a second, because when they told us it was going to be a year after the launch, the vote didn't happen until October. The launch was going to be a full year later, or full year as of May. We were all like, how on earth are we going to wait until May to get this all, it's got to be done sooner. And everyone wanted it done sooner. When April of 2024 came around last year, we were like, thank God we had the year. We wish we had another year, because it really, the volume, when you think about the size and scope of what this global platform is offering, to be able to cross every T and dot every I, you just hope that you've got everything right. And, I would say in how we tackled bringing the strategic objectives of the firm to how we were building our brand and the website, it really came down to, we want to have an impact. We want to be bold. But what that meant was we couldn't be all things on day one. And so we really thought through and focused on strategies, on the strategy and what areas within the strategy were really the main areas of focus. And I'll show a slide later. I don't know if this is working.
Doing the clicker.
Yeah, okay. So, this slide just talks through some of the key launch principles that we stuck to. And this was really important because, we really had to take the best of both brands. Magic Circle firm with massive global platform combined with one of the oldest white shoe firms in New York City, known for M&A and disputes, and take the best of those brands and leave everything else in the rearview mirror. And let me tell you, it's not easy. Little secret, it's not easy, especially when we all know that partners don't like change. So that was, 3/4 of the battle through the process was trying to managing the change aspect of things, and the important aspect of where we were going with the brand was getting everyone on the same message. Thank you. There we go. everyone on the same message and consistent with that message. So I'm sharing this slide because we really had several different audiences that we were focused on. First and foremost, the entire A&O Shearman community. We needed everyone to understand the brand messaging, and the people, and at all levels, and speak the same language. We carried that to our clients. We carried that to prospective talent. And then one of the hardest audiences was actually the alumni, because if you think about it, when you are an alum, whether it be a school or with a law firm or different organization, you tend to have pride and hopefully fond memories of that place that you knew. And we were changing that, right? So we were not keeping A&O the same, we were not keeping Shearman the same, but our hope was we were taking the best of both and bringing that in. And our alumni are such a huge source of referrals for us that getting that community involved and feeling a part of it was incredibly important. So within the first 6 months, we had some pretty significant alumni events in our major cities.
That's an interesting point. And you've touched on some of them. I mean, there must be so many challenges that you had to overcome. We talked about it before. Obviously, you've got the website that needs to go live straight away, the new brand, that, you know, two powerhouses coming together. But then you've got things like the culture that you can't change overnight. You've got the tech stacks. There's 2 different tech stacks that are being thrown together, which, you know, there's still some things going on with that. You've got the geolocations. You've got things like, we talked about even language. You know, it's not that different, but it is American. Is slightly different to the UK, and you know we found that with some of our collateral.
Yeah, I mean one of my the key things that they were looking for in candidates when I was interviewing for my role was someone who could really show a backbone when it comes to, we need the Americas to run in a way that's going to work for the Americas and not, you know, continue just solely as a Magic Circle firm. And you know, that continues to this day, because for us, it's, you know, it's been a huge evolution with the US being the primary market. That's where we had the biggest growth. We felt the merger the most, and we're seeing the changes on a day-to-day basis. So, you know, we came to an agreement very early on that US English was going to be our universal language for website design, content, et cetera, unless it was specifically to a UK market in which we would use the British English. So yeah, there were definitely the change aspect of things, the buy-in. It was hard, and it continues. I'd be lying if I said it doesn't continue to evolve and require day-to-day convincing. But again, when you stop a year later and look back at how far we've grown, I mean, the cultures were so different, and the expectations of teams were so different. I could barely have my team in one room when we first merged, right? And now, you know, now you would never know that they were 2 separate teams. They work seamlessly together. And that comes from, you know, building trust with one another, being open to ideas. I think from a CMO's perspective, watching, kind of breaking down well, this is how we do it. This is how we do it. You know, breaking that down and saying, okay, that's how you did it, but, you know, we're looking at this, we're going in this direction together. So again, it's that constant muscle memory of taking the best from both worlds and creating something new. And that's what we had to implement across, you know, certainly the entire employee audience in order to get out and reach these different audiences.
And so you've got 70, is it, underneath you, or 80? 80 people now?
75.
75, okay, in between.
Good.
But I know you also mentioned there's quite a lot of behavioural change in terms of how some of the team, their relationships with the partners were very different on the Shearman side to the A&O side, and that's an evolving bit, right? You've got to try and change that over.
Yeah, it's a classic scenario of, so U.S. firms tend to be very, very driven, working 24/7, partner-wise, and the expectation then just trickles down to every single team, regardless of what your title is. And I will say one of the best things about moving to A&O was the fact that the British and European influence around the culture really came through. It was still is, incredibly social culture. I think I met more partners down at Oceana at 1221 6th Avenue, also known as our Ally McBeal bar. If you're old enough to remember Ally McBeal, but it was an incredibly social group, and on top of it, that British influence of really respecting the personal time. Emails on my first weekend, I was like, where's my email? Something must be wrong. But it really was, this newfound, life for myself of, okay, people really respect your personal time or in the evening as well. That's very different from my prior firm, from what the Shearman and Sterling side brought to the table. And so over the last year, we've really had to find a happy medium with regard to, our colleagues around the globe carry the A&O side of that culture, particularly with the work-life balance. But there's an expectation in the U.S. that we're also balancing out around. And I should say, at A&O, because there had been a doubling in the partnership in the Americas, and you had all of these laterals coming in from U.S. firms, we were starting to feel it as well. And I could see frustration with partners if they weren't getting responses fast enough. So it was definitely evolving in that direction, but it's been a really challenging process to get the mindset there, but also we are chipping away at it, and it's sort of because of the level of exhaustion on both teams coming into the merger, and then May 1 hit, and really for the marketing team, yes, we had this massive launch and it was successful on the outside, but the work was really just beginning because so much had been held back due to the antitrust barriers that a lot of what we were doing, the practice group leaders had just been identified at the end of April. So everyone was just starting to work together and evolve to continue to figure out who are we, right? Yes, we have this brand now, but who are we?
I remember speaking not that long ago to a UK firm that merged maybe 10 years ago, and then they've said now we understand who we are. 10 years on, we've now built the culture. Now we understand the new firm. So It can take, obviously, time. And we do love our weekends in the UK. That's what you're getting at, right?
Yeah.
We do enjoy them.
And August.
Yeah. Your team, again, going back to the website and content in particular, and this user experience that you sort of had to deliver on day one, you mentioned it there. I think we talked about, yes, it was chaotic, and I envisaged the swan sort of gracefully paddling along, but underneath, frantically, the legs are going. How did you and your team sort of externally make it look quite seamless?
Well, I paused to take credit for it because our web team, which is centrally based in London, across London and Belfast, I mean, they were literally working 24/7 along with our website consultants to make sure that the launch would happen. There were a few glitches right at the very end that we thought, okay, are we going to have to hold on this launch? And that really was an option. But the being ready for it and having the seamless vision was not met without challenge. I will share that the tagging within bios, within practices, within the sectors was all over the place. I mean, we had people that were corporate lawyers that had litigation tags attached to them. Didn't make any sense. My press release had been launched on the A&O site, so we delayed my press release when I joined A&O, and because of all of the merger communications. So it was released on August 11th, 2023, and the new website had me as November 8th, 2023, and it was because the European date had flipped.
Oh, you switched, yeah.
Right? So there were things like that. There were people that had incorrect photos. I will say one of the things that we did that worked really well and it corrected this problem was some of the bios, for the most part, we took all of the photos from the legacy sites and they were converted to black and white and modified so that they could be as close to the, looking consistent as possible. The majority of Shearman partners didn't have shoulders. And that was a standout thing, right? That did not go over well.
Is that a well-known fact in the industry that
Did not go over well. So it just so happened that our global partner conference was a month later in Copenhagen, and so there was a massive undertaking to basically set up headshots for all partners to get shot there all at once, and not many days after we had consistency in photos going up on the website, and they had their shoulders back.
Good. Good to know.
The things that you don't think about, you can't even imagine, but they happen.
You've sort of touched upon it there. You've got a lot of stakeholders to. I'm sure the partners didn't notice any of this, right, on the bios or anything. It's not just the external clients. It's then you've really got to worry internally. How do you? And I've been at talks before where people have talked about this, but not in this instance where it's two firms that you've got so many stakeholders.
Yeah.
But it is tricky not to involve everyone in everything.
Right.
So how did you sort of pick? Okay, these people are going to be the ones that we can involve, because you don't want 800 partners emailing you and going, that's the wrong Pantone. Or
everyone has an opinion and no one's opinion's the same. So we took the approach of having representative focus groups and representative populations of the A&O Shearman community as folks who weighed in on, and reacted to the various design strategies, colors within, Progress Green is our green, but you also see, I'm just going to advance this so we can see, you also see the lighter green that we use as an accent, and that is one of about 5 vibrant colors that we use as accent. If you believe it or not, we have a hot pink, which is my favorite. Yeah. That we use, and it makes the images pop. It makes the content pop. With the direction that we took with the website, I have to say, as a huge skeptic of the black and white photos, I will say the uniqueness of them it gives me a chance to pause and see what is actually happening on this page, and then it draws me to the content. And so everything that our consultants had promised, at least from my eyes, has worked in that regard, because I'm someone who grew up with a spatial learning disorder. I'm all over the place when I'm looking at a website. I was not great at taking tests online because I go everywhere. So to pass the test with me, that to me is a huge standout in terms of the direction that we took. And again, the feedback has been really good on that. This is an example of at the top of our landing page. We have the hot topics and or campaigns that we're running. This one is trade and tariffs with the new administration. We have the About page was one of the areas of the website that we really wanted to make sure was succinct and in place. We needed everyone to understand the brand. The good news was that when they, before I had joined, launched or made the announcement, we had a website called Introducing AOSS. Now, I'll pause there, and I think I shared this with you, but my first day at A&O, I had a full team meeting, and I can remember where everyone was sitting like it was yesterday, and everyone was like, what does this mean, because it's new for all of them too, and what are we gonna call ourselves? Like, is it gonna be A&O? Like, we're just so used to saying A&O. Is it gonna be A&O? Is it gonna be A&O Shearman? Is it gonna be A&O Shearman Sterling? That's such a mouthful. And then one of my team member goes, well, what about A&O SS? And I go, well, we are the magic circle, half the firm. Are we gonna really call ourselves OS? So I was like, I think we'll stay away from that. So for the most part, we go by A&O Shearman, but obviously with a longer legal name. But getting that nomenclature down and really sticking to it. We talked about the consistency in communication and how we're referring to things. It was a huge sticking point that everyone, including the market and media, kept saying A&O, 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 and forgetting the Shearman aspect of it. So we collectively as a firm in every single communication really had to drive home the use of A&O Shearman.
It's like retraining the brain in some ways.
Yeah.
And you touched upon it there, but I think when we had this conversation, you couldn't express how much it meant to actually have the external consultants that really weren't in the trenches with you guys, so they could actually say, look, third party, very valued, and you're paying for them obviously as well.
Right. Yeah. And going back to what we were talking about with what I learned from my old firm taking it to A&O and then now A&O Shearman, at my prior firm, we really tried to build everything in-house. And I said I'd mention COVID because I ran our COVID client response, and that was the first time we really had to stand up a website basically overnight. And the site we did the best we could with it, but it was on a platform that was not, we were stuck with what we had, and changing anything was a huge lift. We had a team member that was this, sole coder, and I thought, oh my gosh, if he goes down, what are we gonna do? And so moving fast forward to the merger and looking at how we were going to tackle it, as large as A&O Shearman is collectively around the globe, and the vast resources that we do have, we still have to run that business, right? So we can't take everyone who's running the business day to day and say, okay, that's gonna be on hold and we're gonna go work on this project for the next year. Finding the right consultants and working with them and engaging with them and really having a relationship that's flexible in terms of being able to scale up and scale back when needed, depending on the phase, is something that I think is why this launch was successful. We would not have been able to do it without. And I'll say it now, I'll say it again at the end, don't skimp out when it comes to this kind of thing. You need it. You also get a fresh perspective that you don't have from, what we had with both teams is they knew their brands, but we needed that outside voice to kind of get us thinking in a direction that was different from each legacy firm.
Yeah, I remember speaking to your agency, actually. It was with Tom, our co-founder, who's in the corner there. We went for lunch with them, and we sort of said, how did you make the website like that? And they were like, we just wanted to transcend law. We wanted it to be a bit more like McKinsey or something like that, which was the output. But with the website, I mean, and there's some vendors in the room as well that talk about this composable architecture and future-proofing. You've got this initial launch. How do you keep that in the long term as well? And not everyone can afford Sitecore XM Cloud, I suppose, but
right. I mean, from where I sit and what I impress upon my team is we constantly have to be thinking about the future and where clients are going to be looking to, what's going to, the feedback around what keeps them up at night is something that I'm constantly thinking about and how we evolve. To compare it to something that you might not think it would be a comparison, but in my view it is. If you look at the fashion industry, the fashion designers land on their designs for, say, fall 2025, 6 months to a year in advance. While the legal industry may not be able to be that forward-thinking, there can be anticipation, there can be planned campaigns around various practices that are part of the strategy that we know we want to highlight. And that's where John and his team with content and campaigns has really been at the forefront of keeping things up to date. I mentioned to Will when I walked in today that with our Chambers launch, we have new guidance in place post-merger that the attempt is to really keep the website clean because it's very clean. And we want it to stay that way. But we also want to make sure we're giving content to the right audiences. And that's been something overall that, depending on what region we're in, is challenging to say, yes, you can do it in this region, but you can't do it in this region. And it goes back to really sticking to strategy.
we're going to have to wrap up, I think. It's gone very quickly.
See that, I know.
For the people in the room, the last question for you, really, and I know you're going to give your details out. I'm going to call it like a
Yes.
Ghostbusters hotline, if anyone does go through a merger. But what would your one piece of advice be in terms of running a project like that, what you've been through and looking on a year down the line?
Yeah, I mean, don't try to do it yourself. Really, despite how good a team is, you need that outside influence, you need the outside flex, but also you are the client in this scenario, so make sure the engagement works for you, and if it doesn't work, then don't be scared to get out of it, is my advice. But definitely, even if it's just a framework that you can invest in that versus just trying to do it all on your own, because it'll be difficult to get it across the line, and use project management too.
Good advice. Thank you very much, Margie.
You bet.
I think you've got a connector up there.
Yes.
I think McDermott, Will and Emery are on after this, so actually they're the next ones. Next ones to merge.
Yeah, that's a biggie. That's a biggie. Well, I'm happy to talk offline with anyone, and thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much.